The end times are upon us. The signs are happening. The end is near, but don't panic yet. You may have missed the rapture, but there's still time to prepare for what comes next. Disasters, plagues, celestial malfunctions, consider them friendly reminders. Now's the time to prepare. From homemade hazmat suits to heavenly currency and trustworthy prophets, this guide has you covered. Because when the heavens open and the world melts, belief alone won't save you. The Tribulation Survival Guide. How to stay alive when everything else is dead. Available now on Amazon.
Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast, your journey, actually our journey together beyond inherited beliefs to a spirituality that works for you. I'm your host, Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. We can fix that later, right? No? Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast. I am Jeremy Steele, and I have the wonderful Kate Johnson with me. She is a memorist, poet, and occasional humorist whose work explores religious trauma, shame, silence, grief from estrangement, and the long road of deconstruction after evangelicalism. And I do want to give you a bit of a trigger warning that this podcast and her story does contain material about child sexual abuse and sexual material. And so just take care of yourself. It's important to tell these stories. And but I know that for some of you, this is the podcast that you need to skip and go on to the next episode. But Kate, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So let's start before all the crazy stuff happened. You know, when you were growing up early, what was church life like for you?
Yeah, so I grew up a pastor's daughter in the PCA church. And for those of you who don't know what PCA is, it's the Presbyterian Church of America, which is like the more conservative Presbyterians. There's also the PCUSA. But I grew up in that church, and it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it was really during a lot of the later part of the Satanic Panic era, the family values era, that sort of thing.
Yeah. The rise of the religious right and Jerry Falwell and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so what was your church like?
Yeah, so my church was actually very, very loving. Like I have a lot of early memories of just wonderful Sunday school teachers, like lots of funny church skits, that sort of thing.
Okay, give us a shout out to one of your Sunday school teachers. What made them so wonderful?
Not my Sunday school teacher, but I remember my sister had like a Sunday school teacher named Mr. Betts. Mm-hmm. It was really funny. But yeah, they were all just really wonderful and warm. And I had like the best time having coloring sheets and all sorts of things, singing fun songs and that sort of thing. But one thing I also remember during that era was that there was just a lot of rules around everything.
Yeah.
And particularly,
like what kind of rules?
Yeah. So I watched a lot of TV as a kid. So I remember a lot of them being around like what I could and couldn't watch. And it was always framed as like what was safe and what was unsafe. Like I knew
what was approved, what was not approved.
I don't know if you remember, I think his name was Steve Green. He had Prayer Bear.
Oh, wow. No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Steve Green. No. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What was Prayer Bear?
Oh, Prayer Bear was like this little puppet bear. And basically they had little stories. There was also the Donut Man.
Oh, the Donut Man.
The Donut Man was definitely
what was definitely out? You definitely couldn't watch it.
So probably anything that was like cartoons, like Cartoon Network. A lot of the stuff on there, except for like strangely like the old like Looney Tune shows.
Right. The ones that are just
which are pretty violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like and like PBS was allowed, except there was like we love Dragon Tales. It's like there was one episode of that where like there was like a farting rock, so suddenly we could still watch that. Like we could still watch it, but like we couldn't watch the one with the farting in it because farting was bad.
Right. Okay. This is yes, no, I'm feeling all of this.
Yeah. And then we also had like there was one time when like I loved Arthur as a kid. Arthur was a fantastic show. And my dad came up to me one day and he was like, "So we heard that Arthur has witchcraft in it."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "What?" And I was like so afraid, like, oh my gosh, I won't be able to watch Arthur anymore.
Right. But so does Lord of the Rings, by the way. But yeah, go ahead.
But he's a wizard. He's a man. It's fine.
Right. Chronicles of Narnia too, but whatever.
Yeah. And I think it was like Prunella's sister and she had some tarot cards or something. But I was like, no, there's no witchcraft in that. So there was just things where there wasn't like a lot of like logical reasoning behind it. It was always like, this is good, this is bad.
Yeah. So then everything takes a turn at one point.
Yeah. So there's one more thing that I want to say about the childhood stuff. Is that I learned that the God that I was around was a God of rules, and that you could follow the rules and be safe, or you cannot follow the rules and be unsafe. And another thing that I learned from that, which I think a lot of listeners might relate to, is it was very much the Dobson era. And I don't think my parents ever read Dobson, but I know it was just in the water at that time.
Yeah.
And learning that like that shame of when you did break the rules and you learned, and when you did get spanked, you didn't learn I did something bad. You learned I am bad. So that really became internalized, and just part of that shame that I think follows a lot of church kids.
Oh, yeah. So many layers of trauma and all of that. But your trauma went to another level.
Yeah. So it was funny because like my childhood was filled with like all these rules and the family value stuff and this idea that like your whole family would be kept safe if you followed all these rules. But then everything changed when my dad was arrested. And he was arrested for child sexual abuse material. He was a pastor at the time, doing those things online.
Like like obviously he had like pictures or videos or something like that. Was he also giving those to other people?
Yeah, he was. Well, he was chatting with minors online and exchanging those types of photos and that sort of thing. So that was what happened, and it really blew up our world because that like we were told, oh, the outside is dangerous, but really the call was coming from inside the house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So was it just all online?
Yeah, it was all online. There was no actual contact with anyone.
Okay. So how old were you when that happened?
I was about 9 years old when it happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just turned 9.
Do you remember anything about the day that it all came crashing down?
Yeah, so I remember that day. So first of all, I was really excited at like the night before because we were told, oh, you can sleep over at your friend's house. And it was like, oh, we got to have a sleepover. We never get to have sleepovers. And then when my mom picked us up the next day, that's when she told us.
What did she say?
Yeah.
Like, how do you tell a kid that?
I have no idea. And yeah, I have no idea how you tell a kid that, but I just remember going to a room. There was a bunch of my parents' friends. There was my mom. My dad was still there. He hadn't been taken away yet. And just like, we weren't even allowed to know what he did. Because really? it was so bad
right
in that world. We were just told that it was something that had to do with computers. And I didn't have an idea of like what was going to happen. I don't think any of us did in that moment. But I just remember my dad asking us for forgiveness. And
shit.
yeah, immediately. And not even having time to process what had just happened and already like feeling the need to forgive him
Did they
for that.
tell you he was going to be arrested?
Yeah, so he we did know that he was going to go away. And we ended up going to a relative's house and then stayed at various friends' house. And the next year or so was just the court process takes a long time.
Yeah.
And the court, and it was a lot of like CPS, like social workers coming, like like things being checked out, a lot of like, oh, you can't talk to your dad now. Like at one point we could only talk on the phone, and like very slowly we're allowed to have more and more contact. So it was just a really wild, unstable time for a kid.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can remember as a 9-year-old when you heard that your dad was going away and he did something bad with computers. How did that feel? Do you have any memory of that sort of internal experience?
Yeah, so that is a good question. I just remember one of the first things that my mom's friend told me is that you need to help support and love your mom through this. And I think as a kid and as an eldest daughter, I really internalized like, oh, you need to be strong in this situation. And for a long time, I just like shut down emotionally. Because I thought that expressing any sort of emotion would be revealing weakness. And I felt like I had to be strong in that. And it's an important part of my story because it was all of those emotions that were stuck down there that I didn't feel like I could express because I had already extended forgiveness.
Yeah.
They really got trapped in my body for a long time. And it took like it took until my late 20s until I was really able to express and mourn and grieve that period of my life.
Yeah. What do you mean by trapped in your body?
Yeah. So I followed like a somatic practices basically. And I'm also actually a Reiki practitioner.
Okay. So you're definitely going to hell.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hell. I am the witch that my dad accused me of when I was young.
Oh my God.
No, I'm not. I don't identify as a witch. But for me, what that is in my life is recognizing that there are different places in the body where emotion tends to go. And you can look at this through a Reiki lens. You can look at it through a traditional Chinese medicine lens. Like grief often lives in the shoulder. But those practices were really important to me for really reconnecting to my body, because that period of my life, I like for a year after, actually for several years after I was going through that, like I literally thought that like I was a fairy. And like, I don't know if you saw the show Winx Club as a kid, but like, I imagined that I was like a fairy, like superhero basically. And that was my little kid way of dealing with that situation and being able to be brave and like imagining that you have magical powers through that.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, that's impossibly hard.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Yeah. So after that, my dad actually moved back in after a lot of the CPS stuff. Yeah. And I mean, that happened for a multitude of reasons. I think a big part of it is that the church encourages women to stay with the man. And even though my dad was fully accountable for what he did, like there was also some like guilt on the woman for like, oh, maybe you weren't doing your job or that sort of thing. Like just terrible. But there was also like this framing of the situation that had happened as an addiction. And as an addiction that could be overcome, which I think is so damaging because I mean, not only does it like minimize the severity of what happened, it also kind of gives the person who is the abusive person like a good testimony, like, oh, I overcame this.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot there, right? Yeah. Like I remember, and then in addition to that, so we lost a lot of our friends in the church.
Of course, yeah. Was he still a pastor?
Yeah, he wasn't a pastor anymore. He was put out of that position. But because we were all living together and he was on the registry, there's a lot of isolation that comes with that.
Right.
And when the man is the head of the house, you have to kind of follow what he says. So like, unfortunately, that combined with the registry puts people in a situation where like the women and children are isolated with a person who has abusive tendencies.
Oh my gosh.
Like I remember he had the option of like getting SNAP and food access and that sort of thing. But he chose not to because he was a Reagan Republican. And he couldn't stand the shame of that. So like we just dealt with like massive food insecurity for years. And that has a huge long-term effect on your body. So there was a lot going on there. Like there's a lot of housing instability, financial hardship, social isolation. And then there's also, we were also homeschooled at the time. I believe it's 48 states.
Lord.
Yeah, 48 states allow sex offenders to homeschool their kids. And during
the actual
and we don't talk about it, right? And when you have things like housing instability and financial hardship and those sorts of things, those have been shown in multiple studies to create conditions for abusive environments.
Oh yeah, so, they are. And
Jesus. And another thing that I didn't find out until later is that people who commit SASM, which is what my dad did, like they have a higher likelihood of using their kids for that. And I'm thankful that didn't happen in our situation. And I don't know if that study had come out at that point, but learning that later and you're isolating kids with this person,
incredible danger.
Yeah. So that's why I think we need to talk about
your
this.
mom really didn't have permission to divorce. Right.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of like part of the family values era stuff, right?
Yeah, like for sure.
If you could sacrifice yourself to provide stability for the good of your children, then that was seen as both a good thing and like she was just trying to provide the most stable environment.
Yeah.
And that was what was included by things like focus on the family and that sort of thing. That was the thing promoted by the church. And I know she has a lot of regrets. Hindsight is 2020. But yeah, but I think like when we do talk about this, I think it's important to talk about like we've had massive cuts this year to SNAP programs, to programs like that support like people getting out of domestic abuse, that sort of thing. And I think it's such an important conversation to have because we ask women, why don't you just leave? And we don't ask like, okay, what support did you have to feel safe enough to leave? No, for sure. And especially with the stigma of what he's done and the isolation, like all of that support system that might have given her the place to land was gone. Yeah, absolutely. So then we enter into adolescence and we are in prime purity culture territory. Oh yeah. Jesus. So we're now adding trauma on top of trauma. Oh yeah. We're adding trauma on top of trauma. So when I got into the purity culture era, I learned that my value as a person was like a balloon. And every time you hug someone, every time you hold someone's hand, like you lost a bit of your value until you were nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so damaging, right?
Yeah, it's awful. Like
Yeah.
it's like in no way psychologically valid.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And
That's all
the
you're taught,
idea that,
right?
right. It is. And the idea that like you would ever teach a child that eventually their value can go to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, who was living in this unstable environment, like with the sex offender registry, there was a lot of, we lived in North Carolina. There's a lot of different rules in it. And if you break even one of those rules, even if it has nothing to do with like touching kids
Right.
or abusing anyone, like you can go straight to prison.
Wow.
So like you could just, at one point it was like you couldn't go anywhere where children were, like,
Right.
but it was so ambiguous. It was like you could go through a Chick-fil-A drive-through, and because there's a play place right there, even if you don't get out of your car, like you could be arrested for that.
Wow.
Or like if you went to church, like my dad couldn't go to church for a long time, so we had like home church.
Wow.
And because there was like a nursery, so even if you never went into that area, like he wasn't allowed in there. And like sex offenders in churches are a whole different conversation.
Right. It's a whole
we can talk about.
So you're in purity culture time. You're being told you need to be afraid of your body, that it is your fault if a guy gets horny and causes him to lust.
Yeah.
So what else is happening? What like at that point? Do things get better or worse?
Oh, but they got worse for a while. Yeah. So we're going through this, and the ironic thing about purity culture is, as my dad is kind of like receiving this praise for like overcoming this addiction in his life, I'm being seen as like if I do anything with a boy, if I kiss a boy, then I'm damaged goods. Yeah, I can't recover from that. So it's a very interesting dichotomy in how we do fear and conditioning between men and women in the church, and how those abuse dynamics play out. So I experienced a sexual abuse situation with a boyfriend. And suddenly, like, I had been trying to follow all these rules and say my kiss for my wedding day. Like, he took the kiss without asking. Some other things happened, but I just felt like, oh, now I'm nothing. And those rules for my safety, like I thought, like if I follow the rules, then I'll get my good Christian husband and I'll be safe, and I'll be in this environment.
Yes, and then you are assaulted.
Yeah,
and the rules compound that trauma, right?
Yeah, and there's just a whole lot of shame, and that.
It's like already an incident that causes all kinds of emotional things, including shame. But the purity culture takes it to a whole other level, because it involves God and your eternal destiny and like all of this.
Yeah. So there was a lot to unpack there, and just living in that shame for so long, and also feeling like I couldn't be part of the community that I was. And that was only compounded when I got to college and I discovered my bisexuality for the first time. And suddenly it felt like I couldn't even walk through like a door of a church without just feeling like this massive shame on me, and feeling like I didn't belong anymore.
And when you sort of came out to yourself, how did you deal with that, like spiritually? Was this like you felt like you had to let go of spirituality, of Christianity, or was it some sort of in-between piece? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think it was really ambiguous for a while. Like I came out to myself, and then I came out to my dad in particular, and he sent me to an addiction support group that I was going to. Yeah, and I laugh, but that's just like it's a terrible thing to like frame.
And you went
sexuality as like a sex addiction, which is not what it is, right?
No, not at all. Yeah.
Like,
did you go to this group?
I did go once.
What
and
happened?
after that, like,
know.
Yeah, and like it was seen
when you were in the group, when you showed up to that meeting. What happened there?
Yeah, I just remember everyone going around like talking about their different addictions.
Yeah.
And, and like being just feeling the shame of saying like
Yeah.
I
Now,
have this thing in front of a group of people that I didn't know.
and that, like, I'm sure their addictions were not being bisexual.
Yeah, no, their
But then,
addictions were normal things.
yeah. And then you're now equating your identity with
Mhm.
all of these other things. Not
Yeah.
necessarily you are, but in that room, that's your presence there is
Mhm.
making that connection.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So there was a lot of different things that happened there, right?
Hmm.
And for years, like, I mean, I was always like a high achieving student. I
Hmm.
was always doing like a lot of work and stuff. But I came to the point after I'd gone out of school and been working for a while that like I started experiencing all these mysterious health issues.
Hmm.
It was like, oh, I wonder what all these mysterious health issues could be.
Yeah.
um, and I always joke that I was experiencing all these things. I was going to all these doctors and not getting answers. And I always joke that I met my inner child during colonoscopy prep. um, yeah, but that was the first time when like you're going through the throes of colonoscopy prep. Um, that like I really felt I was in a real parasympathetic state.
Hmm.
Um, so like when you're fasting for that long, your body goes into this parasympathetic state where it feels really safe.
Hmm.
And at that moment I realized that like before then I've been trying to lose weight. Before that I've been trying to lose weight for a long time. But like my body didn't feel safe enough to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I realized that my inner child had been food insecure, and that was a big reason why. And I really started this healing journey of really coming back to my body because
Yeah.
I realized that because I had experienced so much lack of safety, I had really dissociated through overworking and like
For sure.
overeating,
Yeah.
undereating, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So, you started to say like, you began to realize all of that. I'm wondering, like, where did you start or how did you begin to process all of this?
Yeah. So I think the first recognition is that I needed to do a lot of grief work.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention through this, my dad was arrested for the second time
Oh God.
for the same offense about 5 years prior. And that there was a lot of grief work that I had put off. And like the first thing he asked for was forgiveness, the
Oh,
same as the first
jeez.
time. But I really put off the forgiveness and that call for reconciliation because I knew at that point that that would just spiritually bypass this situation. Um, so there was kind of an on and off relationship for a while as he was in prison, but I finally realized the impact that relationship was having on my body, as well as because of some financial, emotional abuse that had happened throughout
Right.
my life with him. And I made the decision to grieve that relationship, grieve what had happened to me,
Hmm.
and go through that process of ambiguous grief. And I'd always thought that grief had to do with death.
Yeah. Right.
But
No.
yeah, but really going through like naming what had happened,
Hmm.
really going through all the emotions of processing that.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, reconnecting with my creativity.
Hmm.
Um, and then marking it at the end with a grief ritual because I think ritual is important because grief
Yeah.
doesn't ambiguous grief doesn't really have
Hmm.
it doesn't really have a funeral, so you kind of have
Yeah.
to make your
Right.
own.
Can
And
you
for
tell
me
us
that
about that ritual?
yeah, so my ritual for that, I went to a little lake and I
Mhm.
wrote a I am poem.
Okay.
And it was all the things that all the identities of who I was and not the role that I'd been put into, whether it
Hmm.
was the parentified child, the golden child, the caretaker, that sort of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And then I wrote the end of I don't know if you've seen The Fox and the Hound, there's this
Uh-huh.
song and it was like, and the end line is, and in my heart a memory, and there you'll always be.
Mm.
And I took that and I put that little poem and I wrapped it up and made it into like a little boat. And I went to the edge of the lake and sat on the stone. And I watched as this little boat went into the sunset, kind of like a little Viking funeral. And then as I was watching, this fish jumped. And the father that I knew and the father that had been arrested later in life was very different. Like the father that I knew growing up was very silly. He was playful. He loved fishing. The father that I knew that had been arrested, like, had become this really angry, manipulative, abusive person, and just feeling like that old version of him was saying, "It's okay. I'm free now. You can let me go." And I just remembered this red-tailed hawk going across, like leading me to new horizons. And then when I looked back, the little boat was gone.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So I just want to, as a pastor, just say that this was wrong
Mm-hmm.
and evil
Mm-hmm.
and like there is nothing okay about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I like grieve with that little girl right now.
Yeah.
Because
she's so great.
yeah, and all of the ways that she had to experience trauma,
Mm-hmm.
lose her childhood as the adult that is being there for her mom. And yeah. So you obviously are a person who talks about this, who advocates, writes. If somebody is listening to this podcast and is in this sort of place or has this history, what would you say to them?
Yeah, there's a few things. I think first it is you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think this process can make us feel so alone. But I talk to so many people, and so many people have the same stories, and so many women, especially, like, the men are often the ones who have the leadership role, who commit the abuse, but the women are the ones who pay the cost. And there are so many women who are still carrying those burdens, who have felt that their silence was their safety, where they can't express their voice. And I think such an important part of learning how to use that voice is going through that grief. And that grief can be so difficult to access. Because I think in order to experience that grief, we first have to be grounded in that safety.
Yeah.
And like, you can access it before then, but I think that's a really important part of it, and really feeling grounded and making that space for it, because there's so many things in evangelicalism where we're taught to spiritually bypass, to just forgive and that sort of thing. But we talk a lot about the Psalms of joy, but we don't talk about as much the Psalms of lament. And I think those are just as important. And they are such a transformative experience to really embracing the person that God or the higher power or whatever you believe, that person that you are made to be.
Yeah. You know, and I also, I think, for people who maybe are not on your side, our side, I'm also a survivor. One of the things that I want to point out is that a lot of times in the news reporting and how people talk about this, it's all about the abuser.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much about what they did and how they were caught and the arrest and the trial. And the story becomes about them, and the victims are just props in the story.
Yeah.
They are pushed to the background. They are not talked about in the same way, in the same detail, and it's very dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And
Especially
so I
when it's
think,
blamed on you. Like
yeah,
when I
yeah,
came forward, there had been the support for my dad.
right,
But like when I came forward, it was like, oh no, that didn't really happen. Like
yeah,
that blame on you.
yeah,
Oh, you shouldn't have put yourself in that situation. And it really silences people and keeps them from coming forward.
yeah. And it also, though, I think cognitively, because so much of that focuses on the abuser, the perpetrator, that people don't think much about the victims, and they
Yeah.
don't, they're not, in the center of their brain. And I just would say to people, um, when you hear about this kind of thing happening in your social world, um, don't center the abuser in your
Hmm.
mind. You need to center the victims, and you need to be the person who starts to form a support system around them, because you know that some people are not. You need to be active in that.
Hmm.
And knowing that with trauma, there's all kinds of responses that might happen.
Yeah.
And those people at times will be very difficult to stay engaged with.
Yeah.
But that's because they are victims. And so it's on you to stay engaged
Hmm.
and maintain that connection.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's so important because it may take years before they even
Yeah.
realize what happened.
Right. Right.
Like it's not always an immediate thing.
Yeah. One of the things that I do is something called Not Church. We call it Not Church because somebody early on said it's like all the things that they missed from church, like spiritual conversations and community and all of that. But nobody's telling them they're going to hell because they've got a tarot deck on their bedside table. And so it's like a space of all kinds of people of all kinds of religious identities and non-identities that come together, that are interested in spirituality, that are finding beliefs and practices that work for them, and really being there for each other. Like somebody goes into surgery and people check up on them. A lot of people on there have religious trauma around being manipulated out of money. So we don't take donations. It's pay for what you get. It's a subscription. And if anybody can't swing $3 a month, we just let them in for free because God's not a capitalist. If you're interested in that, go to patreon.com/skepticpastor and you can try it out. And here's the thing, $3 a month. If it doesn't work for you, you just stop paying. No big deal. Well, Kate, thank you so much for being on the podcast and being so vulnerable. I find that so often hearing other people's stories helps you understand your own, even if it's not the same story. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
That's it. That's the podcast. Shout out to the Choir Network, to Patheos, to Matthew and Keith, who make everything happen. Now, get out of here. Go do something to make the world a better place. Okay? We'll see you next time.